The crystal chandelier above the charity gala cast shadows that danced across faces worth more than my annual salary. I stood there in my rented tuxedo, watching my wife Amanda glide through the crowd like she owned the place, which, given her recent behavior, she probably thought she did. "Another champagne, sir?" The waiter's voice cut through my observations. "Make it a double," I muttered, keeping my eyes on Amanda as she laughed at something Richard Blackwood said. Richard Blackwood, the city's golden boy developer, the man who'd been funding Amanda's nonprofit for the past 6 months, the same man who'd been texting my wife at midnight. "I'm Jake Morrison, and I manage investment portfolios for mid-tier clients at Henderson Financial. Nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills and keeps us in our downtown condo. Or at least it used to keep us there together." Amanda caught my stare from across the room and gave me that practiced smile, the one she reserved for donors she barely tolerated. When had I become just another donor in her life? "Jake, buddy, you look like someone stole your lunch money." My friend Tony appeared beside me, adjusting his tie. Tony owns 3 gyms across the city and has the kind of straightforward honesty that cuts through pretense like a knife. "Just enjoying the show," I replied, nodding toward Amanda and Richard. They were standing close enough that a business card couldn't fit between them. "That's not a show, man. That's a preview of coming attractions." Before I could respond, Richard approached our group with Amanda on his arm. His smile was the kind that belonged on a shark. "Jake Morrison, right? Amanda's told me so much about you." He extended his hand, gripping mine just a little too firmly. "I have to say, your wife is absolutely brilliant. Her vision for the Children's Foundation is exactly what this city needs." "Funny," I said, matching his grip. "She never mentioned working late with you on Saturdays." Amanda's smile faltered for just a second. "Richard and I have been developing the new community center proposal. It requires extensive planning." "I'm sure it does." I released Richard's hand and noticed him flex his fingers slightly. Must be exhausting work, all those weekend strategy sessions. Richard's laugh sounded forced. "Well, Amanda certainly brings passion to everything she does." The way he said passion made my jaw tighten. Tony stepped closer, reading the tension. "Richard, isn't it?" Tony's voice carried the kind of weight that comes from years of dealing with gym tough guys. "I've heard about your development projects, some interesting financing choices. I'm sorry, and you are?" "Someone who pays attention to city council meetings. Your Riverside project had some creative accounting, from what I remember." Richard's face shifted, the practiced charm slipping. "I think there might be some misunderstanding about—" "Probably," Tony interrupted. "I misunderstand lots of things, like why married women need so much weekend consultation." Amanda's grip tightened on Richard's arm. "I think we should rejoin the other board members." Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. As they walked away, I heard Richard whisper something to Amanda. She glanced back at me with an expression I'd never seen before, part guilt, part defiance, and something else, something that looked almost like pity. "You saw that, right?" I asked Tony. "Brother, Helen Keller would have seen that. Question is, what are you going to do about it?" I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder app. "I'm going to start paying attention." The rest of the evening played out like a badly written drama. Amanda barely spoke to me, spending her time circulating between Richard and the other major donors. I followed at a distance, recording conversations when I could, taking mental notes of body language and whispered exchanges. Around 11, I watched Amanda and Richard step onto the hotel's balcony. I positioned myself near the window, close enough to hear fragments of their conversation. "Can't keep doing this." Amanda's voice was strained. "Told you, after the vote next month." Richard's response was confident, possessive. "Jake's getting suspicious. He's not stupid." "Then maybe it's time to stop pretending." My hands clenched around my phone. The recording app was still running. "I need more time to figure this out properly." "Amanda, you can't have both. You know that." When they came back inside, Amanda's lipstick was slightly smeared. Richard's tie was askew. They thought they were being discreet, but they might as well have hung a banner. The drive home was silent, except for the sound of Amanda typing on her phone. At every red light, I glanced over to see her fingers flying across the screen, deleting messages. "Good turnout tonight," I said finally. She didn't look up. "Richard seems very invested in the foundation." Her typing paused. "He's been incredibly generous." "I bet he has." She looked at me then, her green eyes searching my face. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just an observation about his generosity. We pulled into our parking garage, and Amanda was out of the car before I'd fully stopped. She was already in the elevator when I caught up. "Amanda, wait." The elevator doors closed between us. I took the stairs, 2 at a time, reaching our floor as she disappeared into our apartment. By the time I got inside, she was already in the bedroom with the door closed. I sat on the couch, pulled out my phone, and played back the evening's recordings. The audio was patchy, but there was enough to confirm what I already knew. My wife was having an affair, and she was planning to leave me for Richard Blackwood. But here's the thing about managing other people's money. You learn to think several moves ahead. You learn to spot patterns, to anticipate market shifts, and most importantly, you learn that information is power. I opened my laptop and started researching Richard Blackwood's business dealings. If Amanda wanted to play games, she was about to discover that her husband knew how to play them better. 3 days after the gala, I was sitting in my office at Henderson Financial when my phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. "Working late again tonight. Don't wait up." It was the 4th working late text this week. I screenshot it and added it to the folder I'd created on my phone labeled Evidence. "You look like someone ran over your dog," said my colleague Lisa Chen as she passed my desk. Lisa handled the firm's corporate accounts and had a reputation for seeing through lies faster than a polygraph machine. "Just thinking about portfolio diversification," I replied. "Right, and I'm thinking about quantum physics." She perched on the edge of my desk. "Jake, I've known you for 5 years. You've got that look people get when they're about to make a very bad financial decision. What's going on?" I considered deflecting, but Lisa had always been straight with me. Hypothetically, if someone wanted to research another person's business dealings, what would be the legal way to do that? Hypothetically, public records are your friend. Corporate filings, city council minutes, property records, all public information. Why? Just curious about due diligence processes. Lisa studied my face. "Jake, whatever you're thinking about doing, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, and make sure you can live with the consequences." After she left, I spent my lunch break at City Hall pulling public records on Richard Blackwood's developments. What I found was interesting. Very interesting. Richard's company, Blackwood Development, had been awarded 3 major city contracts in the past 2 years. All 3 had come with significant cost overruns and deadline extensions. More intriguingly, all 3 had been approved by city council votes that passed by exactly 1 vote. I cross-referenced the voting records with campaign contribution data. Richard had donated generously to several council members' campaigns, always just under the reporting threshold that would require public disclosure. It wasn't illegal, but it painted a picture of someone who knew how to work the system. That evening, I got home before Amanda and decided to do some domestic investigation. Her laptop was password protected, but she'd always been predictable with passwords. I tried her birth year, our anniversary, her mother's maiden name, nothing. Then I tried Richard B. 2023. The screen unlocked. My hand shook as I navigated to her email. What I found there made my stomach turn. Months of correspondence between Amanda and Richard, starting professionally but gradually becoming personal, then intimate. The most recent exchange was from that morning. Richard: "Can't stop thinking about yesterday. When are you going to tell him?" Amanda: "Soon. I just need to figure out the logistics. Jake handles some of our joint accounts." Richard: "I can take care of you financially. You know that." Amanda: "I know. It's just complicated." Richard: "It doesn't have to be. File for divorce, cite irreconcilable differences, clean and simple." Amanda: "What about the foundation?" Richard: "What about it? You'll still run it. Actually, you'll have more freedom without Jake questioning every decision." I screenshot everything, forwarding the images to a secure email account I'd created. Then I noticed something else. Amanda had been researching divorce attorneys. She'd bookmarked 3 different law firms, all specializing in asset protection during marital dissolution. The front door opened, and I quickly closed the laptop, positioning myself on the couch with a financial magazine. "Hey," Amanda said, dropping her purse by the door. She looked flushed, her hair slightly mussed. "How was work?" "Long day, lots of planning for the new community center." She avoided eye contact, heading straight for the kitchen. "The one Richard's funding?" She paused at the refrigerator. "He's one of several donors." "Right, several." I turned a page in my magazine. "Amanda, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Are you happy?" The question hung in the air between us. She turned slowly, studying my face. "What kind of question is that?" "An honest one." She leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed. "Jake, we've been married for 6 years. We barely talk anymore. You come home, we eat dinner in silence, watch television, and go to bed. Is that happiness?" I thought it was contentment. Well, maybe I want more than contentment. Like what? Like feeling alive again, like feeling appreciated, like being with someone who sees me as more than just a roommate who shares expenses. Her words stung because there was truth in them. We had fallen into a routine, and I had been taking her for granted. But that didn't justify what she was doing. So what do you want to do about it? She looked away. I don't know yet. But I knew. I'd read her emails. She knew exactly what she wanted to do. Amanda, if you're not happy, we should talk about it. Really talk. For a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Guilt, maybe, or regret. But it passed quickly. I'm tired, Jake. Can we discuss this another time? She disappeared into the bedroom, and I heard the shower start. While she was washing off her afternoon with Richard, I made copies of everything I'd found, storing them in multiple locations. My phone buzzed with a text from Tony. Beer tomorrow? You look like you need to talk? I typed back, definitely. And Tony, I might need a favor. What kind of favor? The kind that requires discretion and possibly some muscle. Now you're speaking my language. I spent the rest of the evening planning my next moves. Amanda wanted to play the game quietly, positioning herself for a clean exit with maximum benefit. She'd underestimated one crucial factor. I was very good at managing assets, including the most important asset of all, information. If she wanted a war, she was about to discover that her mild-mannered husband had been studying the battlefield much longer than she realized. Tony's gym after hours felt like a war room. The weights were racked, the lights dimmed, and we had the place to ourselves. I just finished explaining everything, the emails, the public records, Amanda's exit strategy. So, let me get this straight, Tony said, wiping down a barbell. Your wife is planning to divorce you, take half your assets, and run off with some developer who's probably dirty anyway? That's the summary, yes. And you want to what, exactly? Expose them? Ruin their reputations? I want them to understand that actions have consequences. Tony set down the barbell and looked at me seriously. Jake, I've known you for 10 years. You're one of the most level-headed guys I know. But right now, you're talking like someone who's about to do something stupid. Or something brilliant. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. He grabbed 2 bottles of water from the cooler. Tell me your plan. I pulled out a notebook where I'd been sketching ideas. Richard's business depends on his reputation and his city council connections. Amanda's nonprofit depends on donor confidence and community trust. They're both vulnerable to public scrutiny. Go on? Richard has been bending rules, maybe breaking them. His development contracts all have irregularities. If someone were to raise questions publicly, demand audits, file complaints with the right agencies, his projects could get tied up in red tape for years, Tony finished. And Amanda. Amanda's been using foundation resources for personal meetings with Richard, expensive lunches charged to the nonprofit, hotel conference rooms that were never used for foundation business. It's not embezzlement, but it's questionable enough to damage her credibility. Tony nodded slowly. What do you need from me? Backup, and maybe some help with the physical aspects of the plan. Physical how? I showed him photos I'd taken of Richard's car, a pristine silver Porsche that he parked in the same spot outside his office building every day. Jake, please tell me you're not planning to trash his car. Not trash, just redecorate. The next morning, I implemented Phase 1. I'd researched which city council members had voted against Richard's projects and found that Councilwoman Patricia Williams had been his most vocal opponent. She'd raised questions about cost overruns and environmental impact studies that seemed suspiciously favorable. I called her office and identified myself as a concerned citizen, with information about potential irregularities in city contracting processes. Within an hour, I was sitting across from her in City Hall, presenting a carefully organized folder of Richard's public records. This is very interesting, Mr. Morrison, she said, reviewing the documents. You've identified patterns that my staff missed. I work in financial analysis. Pattern recognition is part of my job. And you're bringing this forward because? Because I believe in transparency in government. These contracts represent millions in taxpayer money. It wasn't entirely a lie. Councilwoman Williams promised to review the materials and potentially call for an audit. Phase 1 was in motion. Phase 2 required more delicate timing. I'd learned from Amanda's calendar that she and Richard had a lunch meeting scheduled at the Riverside Hotel, the same hotel where Richard's controversial development project was located. I arrived early and positioned myself at the bar with a clear view of their table. My phone was ready to record, and I'd brought a small digital camera with a telephoto lens. They arrived separately but left together, walking to Richard's Porsche in the parking garage. I followed at a distance, documenting their interaction. When Richard pulled Amanda close and kissed her against his car, I got it all on camera. But I wasn't done. That evening, while Amanda was at what she claimed was a board meeting, I visited Richard's office building. His Porsche was in its usual spot, and the parking garage was mostly empty. I'd brought supplies, washable paint, stencils, and a small brush. Nothing permanent, nothing that couldn't be cleaned off, but something that would send a message. Working quickly, I painted "Married Women Deserve Better" across his windshield in bright red letters. Then I placed a printed copy of one of his emails to Amanda under his windshield wiper, along with a note, "Your business practices are getting attention. Might want to be more careful." I was back home before Amanda returned from her meeting. "How was the board meeting?" I asked when she walked in. "Productive. We're making good progress on the community center funding." "That's great. Any interesting developments?" She paused, studying my expression. "Jake, you're acting strange lately. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. Just curious about your work." The next morning, my phone rang at 7 a.m. It was an unknown number. "Is this Jake Morrison?" "Yes." "This is Richard Blackwood. I think we need to talk." "About what?" "About the vandalism to my car last night, and about the harassment of city officials with false information about my business." "I'm not sure what you're talking about." "Don't play games with me, Morrison. I know what you're doing, and it stops now." "Richard, I think you're confused. I'm just a guy who manages investment portfolios. You're a guy whose wife is about to leave him, and you're lashing out like a child." The line went quiet, except for the sound of my own breathing. "Here's what's going to happen," Richard continued. "You're going to back off, stop filing complaints, stop following us around, and accept that your marriage is over. In return, Amanda will make sure the divorce is quick and fair. And if I don't, then things get complicated for everyone, including you." He hung up. I sat in my kitchen, staring at my phone, and realized that Richard had just made a critical error. He'd confirmed everything, the affair, the divorce plans, and most importantly, he'd just threatened me. I called Tony. "Change of plans," I said when he answered. "We're moving to Phase 3. "What's Phase 3? "Total war." The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. I was getting ready for work when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a woman I didn't recognize, mid-30s, professionally dressed, with the kind of confident posture that suggested she was used to getting answers. "Mr. Morrison, I'm Jennifer Walsh. I work with the city auditor's office. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" I invited her in, offering coffee while trying to process why a city auditor would be at my door. "Mr. Morrison, your complaint about Blackwood Development has triggered a preliminary investigation. We found some irregularities that warrant further scrutiny." "What kind of irregularities?" "I can't discuss specifics, but I can tell you that Mr. Blackwood's projects will be subject to enhanced oversight going forward. We may need you to provide additional documentation." After she left, I called in sick to work and spent the day researching deeper into Richard's background. What I found changed everything. Richard Blackwood wasn't just bending rules. He was part of a larger pattern of corruption that involved several city officials and at least 2 other developers. The contracts, the campaign contributions, the favorable zoning decisions. It was all connected. But more importantly, I discovered something else. Richard was married. His wife, Catherine Blackwood, lived in a mansion in the city's most exclusive neighborhood. According to social media posts, she'd been traveling extensively over the past year. Charity work in Europe, extended visits with family on the West Coast. She'd been conveniently absent during Richard's affair with Amanda. I found Catherine's contact information and spent an hour crafting an email. "Mrs. Blackwood, you don't know me, but I have information about your husband that you deserve to see. I'm attaching photographs and correspondence that I believe will be of interest to you. I'm not seeking anything in return. I simply believe you have a right to know what's happening while you're away." I attached the photos from the hotel parking garage and selected excerpts from the email exchanges between Richard and Amanda. Then I hit send. That evening, Amanda came home earlier than usual, looking agitated. "Jake, we need to talk." "Okay." She sat across from me at the kitchen table, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "Richard's business is having some problems. There's going to be an investigation, and it might affect the foundation's funding." "What kind of problems?" "Questions about his city contracts. Someone filed complaints." I kept my expression neutral. "That's unfortunate." "Jake, did you file those complaints?" The moment of truth had arrived. I could continue the charade, or I could start being honest about what I knew. "Yes." Her face went pale. "Why would you do that?" "Because I know about the affair, Amanda. I've known for weeks." She stared at me, her mouth slightly open. "Jake, I've read your emails. I've seen the photographs. I know you're planning to divorce me and that Richard promised to take care of you financially." Tears started forming in her eyes. "I never meant for it to happen this way." "But it did happen, and now you're both dealing with the consequences." "You don't understand. Richard and I, You what? Fell in love? Got swept away by passion?" "Amanda, you researched divorce lawyers before you ever told me you were unhappy. This wasn't some romantic accident." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "You're right. I should have been honest with you from the beginning." "Yes, you should have." "So what happens now?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. It was Richard. "Morrison, you need to call off this investigation immediately." "I can't do that, Richard. It's out of my hands now." "My wife is flying back from California. She received some very disturbing emails with photos that could only have come from you." Amanda's eyes widened as she listened to my side of the conversation. "Richard, I think your wife deserves to know what kind of man she's married to. You have no idea what you've started. This isn't just about Amanda and me anymore. There are other people involved, other interests." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you should be very careful about making enemies you can't handle." The line went quiet, then he hung up. Amanda was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before, part fear, part admiration. "Jake, what have you done?" "I've leveled the playing field." Richard's wife is Catherine Blackwood. Her family owns half the commercial real estate in the city. If you've made an enemy of her, then Richard should have thought about that before he decided to cheat on her. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Mr. Morrison, this is Catherine Blackwood. I'd like to meet with you tomorrow morning. I believe we have mutual interests to discuss." I showed the message to Amanda. "Oh, Jake," she whispered. "What have we gotten ourselves into?" "We haven't gotten ourselves into anything. You and Richard created this situation. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth." That night, Amanda slept in the guest bedroom. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd pushed things too far. But every time I started to feel guilty, I remembered the emails, the lies, the months of deception. Richard and Amanda had started this game. Now they were about to discover that sometimes the quiet guy in the corner knows how to play better than anyone expected. Tomorrow's meeting with Catherine Blackwood would determine whether I was a genius or had just made the biggest mistake of my life. Catherine Blackwood was not what I expected. I'd imagined someone fragile, a wealthy socialite who'd crumble at the first sign of conflict. Instead, the woman who met me at the downtown coffee shop looked like she could run a Fortune 500 company, which I learned she essentially did. "Mr. Morrison, thank you for reaching out," she said, settling into the chair across from me. "Your timing is quite interesting." "How so?" "I've been investigating my husband's business practices for months. Your information simply confirmed what I already suspected." She opened a leather portfolio and spread documents across the table. Financial records, bank statements, and what looked like surveillance photos. "Richard thinks I'm a naive wife who spends her time on charity work and doesn't pay attention to business. In reality, I've been documenting his activities for quite some time." "Why?" "Because I've been planning to divorce him, but I needed evidence of his infidelity and his business misconduct to protect my family's assets." I stared at her, realizing I'd been playing checkers while she'd been playing chess. "Mrs. Blackwood, I should tell you that your wife is having an affair with my husband?" "Yes, I know. I've known about Amanda for months. I've also known about the 3 other women he's been involved with over the past 2 years. The coffee shop seemed to spin around me. 3 others? Richard has a pattern. He targets women who run nonprofit organizations, offers to fund their projects, and seduces them. Amanda is just the most recent. She showed me photographs of Richard with different women at various hotels and restaurants. The difference with Amanda is that she thinks she's special. She thinks he's going to leave me for her. He's not? Catherine's laugh was sharp and cold. "Mr. Morrison, my family's wealth built this city. Richard married me for access to that wealth and the connections it provides. He would never divorce me because it would mean giving up everything he's worked to achieve. Does Amanda know this?" "She's about to." Catherine gathered her documents and stood up. "Mr. Morrison, you've been very helpful, but this situation is about to resolve itself. I suggest you prepare yourself for some significant changes in your life." "What kind of changes?" "The kind that happen when people discover they've been played by someone much smarter than they are." That afternoon, I received a call from Amanda. She was crying. "Jake, I need to come home. Can we talk?" "Of course." She arrived an hour later, looking like she'd been through a hurricane. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled, and her hands were shaking. Richard's wife came to see me at the foundation office, she said, collapsing onto the couch. What did she say? She showed me pictures, Jake. Pictures of Richard with other women. Lots of other women. Amanda pulled out her phone and showed me photos that Catherine had apparently given her, Richard in compromising positions with various women over the past several years. She told me that Richard never had any intention of leaving her, that I was just another conquest. Amanda, I'm sorry. No, you're not, and you shouldn't be. I did this to myself. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. Catherine also told me something else. She said you've been investigating Richard's business dealings and that there's going to be a federal investigation into city corruption. Federal? The FBI, Jake. They're looking into bid rigging, bribery, money laundering, all of it. My phone rang. It was Jennifer Walsh from the city auditor's office. Mr. Morrison, I need you to come in tomorrow morning. Federal investigators want to speak with you about the information you provided. After I hung up, Amanda stared at me with something approaching awe. Jake, do you realize what you've done? You've brought down a corruption ring that's been operating for years. I was just trying to protect myself. You were trying to get revenge on Richard, and you accidentally uncovered something much bigger. The next morning, I sat in a conference room with 2 FBI agents and a federal prosecutor. They walked me through everything I'd discovered about Richard's business practices, asking detailed questions about the city contracts and campaign contributions. Mr. Morrison, your complaint triggered an investigation that's been months in the making, Agent Sarah Davis explained. We've been building a case against several individuals, and your information provided crucial corroboration. What happens now? Now we finish the investigation, and you go back to your life. What about Richard? Mr. Blackwood will be facing multiple federal charges. His business assets are being frozen, and his city contracts are being terminated. That evening, Amanda and I sat in our living room, trying to process everything that had happened. Jake, I know I don't have the right to ask this, but do you think we can work things out? I looked at my wife, really looked at her, for the first time in months. Amanda, you had an affair. You lied to me for months. You were planning to divorce me and take half of everything I've worked for. I know, and I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand. But, I continued, I also know that our marriage was in trouble before Richard came along. We both stopped trying. So what does that mean? It means we start over, completely. Marriage counseling, complete honesty, and you find a new job. The foundation is going to collapse when Richard's funding disappears. And if I can't do those things, then we get divorced. But we do it honestly, with lawyers and mediation and a fair split of assets. Amanda reached across the couch and took my hand. Jake, I want to try. I want to fix this. Then we try. 6 months later, Richard Blackwood was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for corruption and fraud. Catherine Blackwood divorced him and recovered most of her family's assets. The city corruption investigation led to the indictment of 3 city council members and 2 other developers. Amanda left the foundation and started working as a project manager for a legitimate nonprofit. We went to counseling twice a week and slowly began rebuilding our marriage. I learned something important during those months. Revenge is a dish best served with patience, intelligence, and a complete understanding of the battlefield. Richard and Amanda thought they were playing a simple game of adultery and divorce. They never realized they were up against someone who understood that information, properly applied, is the most powerful weapon of all. Sometimes the quiet guy in the corner isn't as quiet as he appears. Sometimes he's just waiting for the right moment to remind everyone that actions have consequences, and consequences can be more devastating than anyone imagines. The game was over. I had won. And unlike Richard, I hadn't had to break any laws to do it.